everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome in to another edition of Straight Facts Homie, the podcast where we don't have an argument with you, or we don't yell at you. We don't tell you what we think. We tell you what we know based on the data and the information and historical precedent. Glad you're with us today. You know, every one of the episodes, we have something called our trusted voice, a person involved in sports who knows the game, knows what he's talking about, and knows the information is solid. And this week, it's none other than a former PGA Tour player who won 3 times on tour, but whose career has really taken off in his post-playing career as a great contributor and commentator for NBC and the Golf Channel. His shtick, for lack of a better term, is to go out there and recreate the epic shots from majors and really big events and try and tell people just how hard it is. I'm talking about, of course, Johnson Wagner, a.k.a. Ted Lasso, when the mustache is fully grown in. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode, and click like and subscribe of Straight Facts Homie with Johnson Wagner. All right, delighted to be joined on the Straight Facts Homie podcast by one of our trusted voices in golf, none other than a longtime PGA Tour player and now current broadcaster for NBC and Golf Channel, Johnson Wagner. Johnson, full disclosure, you and I first met over beers at the Open at Royal Lytham in St. Anne, so good to see you again. How are you?
Dre, I'm great. Thanks for having me on, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been a huge fan of what you've been doing with the Golf Channel. It's really been interesting the way you sort of carved your niche out for yourself. But before we go any further, please never shave that lip sweater again, man. Like, that is, like, when I saw you without it, I'm like, what happened? Was there some sort of tragic accident? What happened?
Man, the Ryder Cup was a long week, and I had kind of promised my wife I had some time after the Ryder Cup where I wasn't going to be on camera for a while. And so Monday night after the Ryder Cup, I was in Stamford, Connecticut, getting ready to work the Sanderson Farms, and I just had enough of it, and I shaved it off and forgot that I was going on Gary Williams' show that next morning. And then I've also forgotten that I have some TaylorMade obligations in November, so it's coming back. I'm about 5 days in, and it'll be back in about a month.
I was about to say, how long did it take you to go full Ted Lasso? That's the most important thing.
I mean, I feel like it's decent after 4 or 5 weeks, 2 months, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Okay, because that thing is impressive. I mean, listen, I remember the first time I saw you, I'm like, oh my God, Ted Lasso's doing the Golf Channel. I'm sure you've heard that joke a million times, and you hate it, right?
I don't. Ted Lasso is one of my favorite shows of the last 10 years, so I like that comparison.
All right, perfect. Then we can keep doing it. That's great. Okay, so lots to get to here. And I guess let's start with the news that broke over the weekend, that Tiger's going to have another back surgery. Now, you know, I went into a long diatribe on this pod about how significant Tiger Woods was. Like, the people that didn't remember peak Tiger Woods experience, I feel bad for them. Because I'm sure as a guy that played during that era, you didn't feel terrible for him. But I mean, like, the experience of watching that, I don't think we'll ever see again. And I just want to get your take on what you think the future is for Tiger now after another back surgery. He's going to turn 50 in December.
Yeah, I mean, I owe my entire career to him, my retirement. I think anybody that played in the post-Tiger Woods era on the PGA Tour needs to probably give him about 25% of their career earnings. That's what he did for the game and for professional golfers. I remember playing every event. My rookie year was 2007. Every event he played in felt completely different to any other event. You had Tiger events and you had non-Tiger events.
Yeah.
And I say that because I have so much respect for him and admiration for what he did. But I'm going to say this: I don't think we'll ever see him playing another major championship. He's always been the guy that said he's not going to be a ceremonial golfer. I just don't see a world in which we see him play in the Masters again, and it makes me very sad. I just think his body is just beaten down, and I don't think he can do it anymore.
Yeah, and you know, the couple events he has played since, you know, the car crash and before the last couple of surgeries, you could tell, like, the ball striking is still there. I've had people tell me that if he would take a medical exemption and, like, take a cart, this is before the most recent surgery, he'd probably win 2 or 3 tournaments a year. Do you think that would have been possible had he decided to do something like that?
I mean, I don't think that he would ever take a cart.
I know he wouldn't,
but nobody else. So it's hard to even say. But, you know, the Achilles issue that he just had, and now another back surgery, I just think it's added up. No, I don't think even with a cart. I think the game has gotten young. Everybody's hitting the ball so far. Everybody's so good. I don't think that even with Tiger Woods in a cart right now, I don't think he could be able to win.
All right, so if you could just put into, like, what was it like in an event playing and knowing, like you said, there were Tiger events and non-Tiger events, but when you're in one of those events where he's playing and he's doing the things that you're doing. Like, I remember Nick Faldo when he had his first ace at the Phoenix Open, Waste Management Open, before it became the big carnival circus that it is. You know, they were broadcasting and Nick Faldo heard a huge roar that said, had to be an ace, had to be Tiger. And that's exactly what it was. What was it like when you're in an event and you guys are grinding away and he is out there just kicking everybody's ass? Was everybody just sort of aware of it?
It was amazing. Memorial, Bay Hill come to mind, even Farmers Insurance Open now at Torrey Pines. Yeah. It was those events that, you knew early on in the week that you were playing at best for second. And if you got into that gauntlet of getting paired with Tiger on the weekend, you were you were an away Ryder Cup team no matter where you were playing. It was just, I remember my good friend Brendan DeYoung, teammate and at Virginia Tech with me, he got paired with Tiger in the final round at Congressional one year, and it was just like more than you can handle. Like, I don't think there's many people in the world that are mentally capable enough to play with Tiger in a situation like that. Obviously, Vijay Singh did it successfully. David Duval had his moments, but there was just Phil Mickelson, but there was nobody that was his equal.
Yeah, my favorite non-major Tiger story, and I don't know if you were in the event that year, was at Bay Hill. It was either 2002 or 2003. It was rainy. It was cold. He had a 4 or 5 stroke lead going into Sunday. Got sick from some bad pasta primavera. Spent the entire day throwing up on the golf course and won by 11 shots. Like that. Like I don't know how to explain how different this guy was. Like, you know, he had a 5 stroke lead. And 4-stroke lead, and then won by 11, puking on every tee box. Like, that is the craziest thing I can remember.
Yeah, I was not in that field. I was in college at that time, but I did not remember that either. That he went through that. But his ability, I mean, the U.S. Open at Pebble, when he won by however many he won by, 15. Only person under par, 15. Yeah. His goal was to not make a bogey that entire Sunday, and he had that great up and down on 16 and fist pumped, and everybody's like, this is weird. But knowing like how he would just set himself apart and run away with events. Scottie Scheffler's kind of, you know, I know we shouldn't compare anybody to Tiger, but the way Scottie's doing things, he's doing things differently than we've seen since Tiger Woods. So I think the comparisons are kind of similar, just the way he goes out and annihilates fields.
Yeah, I think the safest way to say it is Scottie is doing things that we saw Tiger do before, but he's going to have to do it for 13 years to be, you know what I mean? Like, he's got 3 good years. He's got 3 incredible years. Now do it for another 10, and then we're talking about what we saw from Tiger. With that in mind, where do you think the state of the game of golf is right now? Because it's to me, I was talking about this with Brandel a few episodes ago. I think this was the best year for the PGA Tour in the post-Tiger Woods competitive era. And I want to get your take on where you think the state of the game is right now.
I would completely agree with you on that. I think ratings were up way ahead of where they'd been the last few years. I think having Rory win the Masters and complete the career Grand Slam really started the major season off right. Obviously, Scheffler winning the PGA and the Open Championship was amazing, and the way J.J. Spawn won the U.S. Open was a great story. I think the game is in a good spot. I'm a little leery of the new powers that be at the PGA Tour coming in and shaking things up, and I'm not a fan of 100-man as opposed to 125 keeping their cards. I'm not a fan of necessarily shrinking field sizes and decreasing opportunities, because one thing the PGA Tour does so well that LIV doesn't is that we create stars. Right. The PGA Tour, when you play and you win out here and you win at a heavy clip, you are becoming a star. And I think the more we shrink this, the harder it is for rookies to even keep their job the next year. I'm leery of becoming a closed shop and not creating this new breed of superstars like we're going to see out of hopefully Clanton and Jackson Coyvan and these guys coming out of college.
That's really interesting, because I know Brian Rolop, who's the new, I don't know what his title is, Grand Master of Time, Space, and Dimension for the PGA Tour. It's quite an extensive title. I've known him a long time because of obviously his association with the NFL and how much I work with the NFL. And I do see him as a guy who's not afraid to make changes. And I've heard a lot of people in the golf community say what you're saying, and it's sort of a double-edged sword, right? Because you want to try new things, and you want to sort of, anybody comes in, they want to. It's like when Gil Hance redid Pinehurst number 4, right? Like you want to sort of make it a Fazio course, but you want to change it a little bit, or you want to make it your own. So everybody sort of goes through that process, but there is so much tradition in golf, and I think there's a fine line that Brian's trying to walk. And I think a lot of people are expressing what I've heard from you. It's like, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
And as I look at it from the media perspective, it's completely different than the way I look at it from a former player perspective. I'm looking out for these guys that are just, it's so hard to get to the PGA Tour, much less keep your job out there. And for so many great players, like there are more players turning pro and trying to play professional golf now, and we're shrinking spots and shrinking the avenues in which you can get to the top of the game. But as I look at from a media side, I worked the Sanderson Farms Championship last week. I'm working 3 or 4 other fall events, and I love the fall. That's why a lot of guys are keeping their job. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the fall series on the PGA Tour get phased out. And you know what? To be honest, it may be nice for the golf fan to miss the sport for a while. I feel like the PGA Tour plays so many weeks that the fan never has opportunity to be like, man, I wish there was a golf tournament this weekend, because there's a tournament every single weekend.
Right.
And I do think from that my media side of my brain, gosh, it would be nice to miss the sport for a little bit.
It's interesting, right? Because I think we can. I'm assuming you like football. I mean, you were born in Amarillo, Texas. You better. But from the thing that the football has going for them the most, to me, over any other sport, is you don't play 82 games like you do in the NHL or the NBA. You don't play 162 games. You play 17. We'll probably play 18. And then, you amp up. Now, I get it. Now we're on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, some Saturday games. But there is that time where you're waiting for that thing to happen. I mean, I get guys that, on social media all the time, 100 days till the start of the season, 40 days till the start of the season. So there is something to that, to what you're saying. How difficult do you think it would be for a lot of people in golf to get to where your media side of your brain is when you think about it that way?
I think the fan would love it. I think it would be missed. But I think from a player side, if the PGA Tour is going to go that route of shrinking down the schedule, they're going to need to build up that Korn Ferry Tour, because you're going to start seeing a lot of big name play. You're already seeing it out there. Big name players going back to get their cards through that tour. And I would like to see maybe low-end PGA Tour events, high-end Korn Ferry events kind of come together and create a much bigger platform on that tour. I think the Golf Channel could obviously televise more of those events, and I think when you start seeing the names that are going to be back down there next year, I think that tour needs to be strengthened. And that could be the tour that's every week that we see week in, week out. It's, I've heard it called PGA Tour Light. But it could really be that platform that the avid golf fan could get on a week in, week out basis.
Well, I've just got the marketing slogan: PGA Tour Light, less filling, still tastes delicious, and we've solved all the problems. So this is let's do this, because you have become a thing in golf circles. So this is the Johnson Wagner platform. This is your pitch to Brian Roloff, who said, "We will respect the traditions of the game, but we will not be bound to them." So if you had an open forum, and I'm giving you that platform now, to say what you would like to see Brian do, what would you say to him?
I think field sizes. I think it needs to be, if you keep your card on the PGA Tour, it's a 100-man field. I think if it's 20 weeks plus the majors, I think you have this PGA Tour season where there are no sponsor exemptions. So a guy that doesn't get in that top 100, he's got to go back down. So if there's a call it a 20-week PGA Tour schedule, play big purses, but all 100 players that keep their card get into those events. That's what I would like to see. Have of those 100 that play in those events, maybe the top 70 keep their card for that top 100 next year. Give 10 spots from the Korn Ferry Tour, give 10 spots to the DP World Tour, and have a Q school. I haven't really thought this out. Maybe 15 from DP World, 15 from Korn Ferry, and then everybody else has to go back to the Korn Ferry. So a guy like Ricky Fowler's a bad example, but last year he was outside the top 100. Ricky Fowler would then have to go back down to that Korn Ferry Tour, and I just think you'd have a really interesting secondary tour, and you'd have the top 100 players in the world playing week in, week out, with some churn, with some changeover, having those 15 fresh people from both the DP World Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour coming in every year.
I actually really like that idea. I like that a lot, actually. So, Brian, if you're listening, and I know you are, take heed to what Johnson just said. But the one problem, obviously, is going to be the sponsors' exemptions, right? Because if the sponsors are like, hey, I'm fronting this, you got to give me something of what I want, right? That's going to be the pushback.
Yeah, and they're spending $20 to $25 million a year for a single tournament at this signature level scale. So, yes, is TV ratings enough? Is advertising enough? No, AT&T sponsors Pebble Beach. Jordan Spieth's been an AT&T guy for his entire career.
Right.
You rest assured Jordan Spieth will be playing the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am next year.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because the one move I want, and I'd love to get your take on this as a guy who did it the old way, I cannot stand the fact that the PGA is in May. It drives me crazy. I feel like the majors are over in the blink of an eye. And, everybody ramps up for the Masters because it's really the coming out party for golf. Look, I know normally the Century in Kapalua, where we spend time, is sort of the unofficial start to the season. Everybody gets ready, and it's a terrible thing that we're not going to be able to have it there this year. Don't get me started on that one. But, the idea that we wait so long for Augusta, and then next month is the PGA Championship, and then it's the U.S. Open, then it's the Open Championship, and we're done by July 20th. I actually DM Brian this. I said, look, congratulations. I really, really want you to move the PGA back to August. And I know that the pushback is, well, we got the playoffs and what we do there. To me, that's secondary. The majors are everything in golf, and that's what drives the audience. And the idea that it's over July 20th just drives me crazy. Do you like it, or would you like to move it back?
I'm okay with it being in May.
Shame! No, I'm just kidding.
Covering the majors, I feel like from the Masters until after the Open, I feel like the last 2 years has flown by. I don't feel like I've seen my family at all between the months of April and July. And I think the PGA Tour not owning any of the majors has a lot to do with it. They've really structured this to where the Players is in March, and I don't see that happening. Plus, August is such a bad month in the United States for no matter where you go. You get heat. The course conditions aren't going to be great because even in New York, it's hot. You're having to water these Poana or bent grass greens. I think I've heard a lot of people say they want the PGA back in August, and I would be fine with it, but I'm also quite content with where things are right now.
Well, and I get it. I understand from a scheduling perspective what you're talking about. Like for me, after what Scottie did at Portrush, right? 1,197 days between his first major and his fourth major. Same number of days between Tiger Woods' first major and his fourth major. Literally the same. Doing things on a Tiger Woods level. And then it's July 20th. All right, we'll see you in April. I mean, I just felt like there was so much momentum that golf. I mean, I play as much golf in August than I do in almost any other month. And I hear what you're saying. But we've had PGA Championships in August at Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma before, in 2007. And like when you see the PGA at Oak Hill outside Rochester in May, the weather's pretty shitty in upstate New York that time of year. And it would be a lot nicer, even though it would be hotter. It would be a lot nicer in those, upstate New York, Massachusetts golf courses, upper Midwest. There's so much good golf in Wisconsin and Michigan. Those places could actually have a chance to host a major championship again if it goes back to that August date.
Well, so what do you do with the playoffs then? Does the PGA? Because I feel like the playoffs this year were better than they've been in years past, and there was a little more interest. I think that more important to me is how you fix the playoffs, because the Tour Championship last year was flat. The guys are tired. They didn't want to be there. This year felt a little bit better because anybody that was there had a chance to win. So I think if you move that PGA back to August, how do you make the playoffs meaningful? And because I think the PGA Tour, they want people to consider the FedEx Cup playoffs on par with the majors, and I agree with you right now. It is not that way. But what can you do to make it that way?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure if there's anything you can do to make it that, right? I mean, like, it to me, it's kind of like the President's Cup is never going to be the Ryder's Cup, or the Ryder Cup, excuse me. I don't know why I said the Ryder's Cup. The President's Cup is never going to be the Ryder Cup. It just isn't. It's just a thing that they tried to create to make some money, and I understand. To me, the playoffs are similar, and they are important, but I don't think most people think them as nearly as important as the majors. And I guess my thought process, and it's easy for me to say this because I don't have to do it. We'll figure that out later. Like to me, the priority is for me as a fan and a guy who consumes golf and a guy who loves golf, the idea that our last major is done in July 20th just doesn't sit well with me. And I know this is going to upset some people, especially those who have only won their only major is the PGA Championship. The U.S. Open is the toughest test in golf. The Masters is the Masters. It's sort of a reawakening for all of us to fall in love with the game again. And the Open is the oldest championship that we have in this sport. The PGA is, for lack of a better term, 4 out of 4 for most people when they rank the majors. And I think the idea of having it last adds a little more credo to it. Like, for years, TNT did it, and they had the PGA, and they called it Glory's last shot. Now, we can do the whole thing where grammatically that's incorrect because Glory doesn't have a shot. You have a shot at Glory. That's a separate issue entirely. But I think by having it as the last major, it gave it a little more gravitas. It gave it a little more, this is my last chance to bag one of these things. And I think that made it a little more interesting.
And I mean, you're selling me on this. There is no identity to the.
Yes.
There's no. The PGA of America, the PGA Championship has the least identity of any of the majors, and it does being the last one makes it more valuable. And I do. Gosh, Michigan and Wisconsin. I was just at Sand Valley in Wisconsin.
Oh my God! How great is Sand Valley? How great is Erin Hills? How great is Acadia Bluffs?
There are. The window, I mean, we just had the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow in Charlotte here in May, my home course, and it was incredible. We had a lot of bad weather early in the week with rain, but I feel like with the May date, Oak Hill got lucky with the weather.
Very lucky.
I mean, it could have been a nightmare. And by the way, the membership, they shut down in October. Members were not allowed to play that golf course for it was like 6 months, 7 months that they couldn't play because they had to do so much stuff to get the grass ready to be played on in May that far north. So I'm with you. The opportunities to have, I mean, we had a PGA in 2017 in Charlotte in August. That was nasty. It was hot and not a great time of year to be here. But I do think the northern areas, the Pacific Northwest, would be much better in August.
Absolutely.
How about where we're seeing now?
Yeah, go
Frisco?
back to Sahali. Yeah, go to Sahali. Go to freaking Chambers Bay again. And the other thing too, like when it was at Bethpage in 2019 after the Masters, it was freaking cold. Like it was in the 40s. I mean that's what's in play there. And by the way, if I've convinced you, we've done my job. They say if you reach one person, Johnson, if you reach one person, you've done that. But you're right. The problem is, what do you do with the FedEx playoffs? And I think it's manageable, but to me, and again, the issue is the PGA Tour doesn't own any of these, so it's all negotiation. I would love to see the PGA back, and I'm not terrified, by the way, of running into the first couple of weeks of the NFL season. I think that golf consumers are a very different audience than football consumers, college football especially, and the NFL. I think if people want to watch golf, they'll find a way to watch it. You may lose some casual viewers, but I think the people that are really interested in the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup playoffs, that will still be appealing to them no matter what else is going on.
That's a fair point. I mean, my first few years playing, and we played in Boston over Labor Day weekend. It was the third playoff event. It was great. It was the second playoff event of 4, and loved being up there in early September. I mean, the PGA Tour is so concerned about going up against football, and if that's the case, the season should start later too. Why are we starting in January, running up against football, running up against AFC NFC Championship weekend is a horrible weekend to be playing golf at Torrey Pines.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. If you're so concerned about it, why are you starting the tour with the two most watched games outside of the Super Bowl? You know what I mean? Like, if you're that concerned about it, you wouldn't be there. See, this is why conversation matters. Okay, you've just made an excellent point that I hadn't even thought of. You can't say it's a problem in September, but it isn't a problem in January where everything is on the line. Again, Brian, we're here for you, man. We are here for you to help guide you through this.
I mean, that's CBS's first week, and Jim Nantz is calling the golf from the booth at pretty much Arrowhead Stadium. It has been the last few years.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Where are you on the idea of LIV and the PGA Tour ever coming together? I have a feeling that obviously when LIV started, it was some body blows and the guys that they took. And then the last couple of seasons, Scottie Scheffler became Scottie Scheffler. And we've seen the great stories this year. Rory completing the career Grand Slam. Tommy Fleetwood finally breaking through after all those top 10s and top 5s at the Tour Championship. I feel like the PGA Tour is in a much more stronger position with their leverage against LIV than they have been over the last couple of years.
I don't see the PGA Tour and LIV merging in any form. I think that's not going to happen. What I would like to see is if guys like Koepka or Bryson, who I think LIV's going to re-sign a lot of these guys. So the big names that are the team captains or whatever their title is over there, I've heard their contracts run through 2026. All the other guys like the Harold Varners and those guys, they were up at the end of this year. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of the guys are re-signing with LIV. Now, if a guy like Koepka, whose contract ends in 2026, if he were to want to come back, I think there's got to be a path for those guys to come back and play on the PGA Tour. And I don't know what that looks like. I've heard that 2027 is the earliest that anything can happen. I know a guy named Hudson Swafford, who was one of the first guys to go, multiple winner on the PGA Tour. Yeah. He got relegated off of LIV. And the PGA Tour basically said, you have a year suspension, you can come back and try to play in 2027, is what I've heard. So I think that is what we're looking at as far as any sort of unity. But, I mean, I don't think LIV's going anywhere, and I'm shocked by it because I've been saying for years that the product is not really great to watch. Doesn't seem like they care. Guys like DeChambeau show up for majors, and you can tell he cares. He showed up for the Ryder Cup, and he cared. But it just doesn't seem like they care that much about it over there. So I'm just shocked that the Public Investment Fund is still putting as much money into this thing as they are, seeing no profit in sight and not really any sort of traction in the golf world.
Well, see, I think what you just said is the bigger thing. They don't mind burning cash. They got plenty of it. I think that if they would have an honest moment with us, they're upset that they haven't found a way to get a seat at the table. Because I think that was the whole point of this thing. And in full disclosure, they talked to me about doing stuff for them, and I just didn't want to do it. But to me, they don't mind burning money. They got plenty of that. I think what they're trying to figure out is how come we haven't gotten what we really wanted, which was a seat at the table. Like a seat at the power table, because that's what they've done in Formula One. That's what they've done in EPL, English Premier League. I think they're upset that they haven't figured out a way that this diversion or this division could create an opportunity for them to be where they want, which is at the highest seat of the table in the game of golf.
I mean, they tried to buy LIV. I mean, they tried to buy the DP World Tour, and the tour kind of put a stop to it. That would have been the avenue that they needed to go to get a seat at the table. And their unwillingness, the world ranking, as flawed as whatever you want to call the official world golf ranking, I think that it's fine. LIV just not being willing to play 4 rounds or cut out the team aspect of it.
Right.
If they really wanted a seat at the table, do what the world ranking board told you to do, get world ranking points, and then now you would have something. Otherwise, it's just these special invitations into majors, and I just, it seems like they're talking out both sides of their mouth if they want to be relevant, but they don't want to play by the rules that the OWGR has set forth. I think that would be the only thing that could make them any sort of relevant in the next few years, but they're not willing to do it.
No, they're not. And you mentioned the whole thing. Like, no one's saying they don't have good golfers. The product is not something that people care about. It's just that simple. Because if it was, they would watch it more, and they wouldn't have to give away tickets. So that, to me, that's their biggest issue going forward. All right, this was a breakout year, as we talked about on the PGA Tour. How does the tour continue to sort of manifest itself and build off the success we had in 2025?
I mean, adding another signature event's great. Having stars win, having Scottie Scheffler do what he's doing the last couple of years, having Rory McIlroy complete the career Grand Slam. I think Scottie Scheffler, Shinnecock U.S. Open. I think to complete the career Grand Slam in a speed in which he would do it on his first crack at it, I think having the stars continue to play well is massively important. I also am looking forward to Michael Thorbjornsen, Luke Clanton, these young players coming out and winning. I don't think the tour can do anything. I think it's upon the players to make it interesting. Personally, I don't know. I like the whole Brian Rowlap thing and wanting to be the PGA Tour wanting to turn a profit is so hard for me because every single tournament is its own entity. It's its own business. They run the tour doesn't run these events. Now they have a management team that does run a handful of tournaments, but
right.
How do you become profitable in a nonprofit world when each tournament donates all their earnings back to their event and to the charities in the local communities? I don't this whole big change thing coming. I don't know how you change the whole model of the PGA Tour personally.
Well, you're right, and that's the issue. I mean, especially when you talk about LIV doesn't care about that because that's not their end game, but it is the end game now with the private equity coming in here, and that's the game changer that the tour has got to figure out. Right, they've got to figure out some way to keep the players, have enough money for the players, have enough people investing in the tour so they can have enough money for the players, but then make sure the whole model of what the PGA Tour isn't washed away at the same time.
Yeah, because we've been talking about this a lot in live from trailers, just behind the scenes chats with everybody there, producers, Brandel, Rich, everybody. Like, how is SSG going to get a return on that $3 billion?
11% is what they're looking for. 11% on $3 billion. That's the thing they put out there.
Is it gonna come out of the charitable dollars? Are they gonna stop the Champions Tour? Because I know that the PGA Tour subsidizes a lot of those purses. Are they gonna how? I think I just don't. I don't have the answer. I just don't know how they're gonna get that sort of return.
Yeah, it's that's probably the biggest thing that Brian's got to figure out, right? If we're talking about all this other ancillary stuff and moving this and moving that, at the end of the day, everything has to be about, does this make this work? And I think that's his biggest challenge going forward. You know, one of the things that I've watched in your career as a broadcaster is the challenge of going out there and recreating the shots, right? Who came up with that idea? Because I got to tell you, it was brilliant.
Matt Hegarty is my studio boss. He basically runs the studio side of Golf Channel. Been doing it for a long time. Yeah. Good golfer himself. I told him after my first year, I was like, "Hey, I really Live From is my favorite show. I really would like a spot on there." And he said, "Well, I've had this idea. You know, Frank Nobilo used to go out and hit chips the 2 weeks before a major. They'd film them and they'd kind of air them as they're live." And he said, "I've had this idea for a long time." To go out and hit shots at night after play is done and sort of recreate the shots of the day. And so he gave me a crack at doing it. At the Players Championship in 24 was the first time doing it. And the first night we did it, Rory had hit it left off of 18 at the Players into the penalty area. It makes the turn and he gets to 7 and hits it left in the penalty area there. And there was like this altercation with Rory and Spieth about where he should drop, and so I producer and I were like, yeah, we got to go do this on 7. And I said, I'm going to try to prove Rory took the right drop, because on the camera angle that we had, you could see the ball bounce. And I go out there with balls, and I'm like, I'm going to throw them into the ground. And I called Matt on the way back because I thought I had messed it up. I was like, man, you gave me a shot at this. I feel like I messed that spot up tonight. And he said, have you looked at social media yet? Yeah. And I said, no. He said, well, when you get home, when you get back to the hotel, why don't you take a look at it and give me a call back? And like, people just freaked out about it. And it's been really cool to try to take people down to the ground. And I think golf, you're so standoffish of the players and the course, and TV can't really get you as close as you want to be. And I feel like that's been the best thing about it, is like, I feel like the viewer gets to come down and hit the shots with me.
Oh, it's absolutely fabulous. And then you took it one step further this year, which, by the way, another idea that I wasn't sure about, but I really enjoyed it, recreating all of the iconic shots during Tiger's 2000 season. By the way, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I will die on this hill. The 2000 season by Tiger Woods was not only the greatest season in the history of golf, it's probably the greatest season by any athlete in any sport. And you can come at me with your different opinions, but I will back it up with 3 of the 4 majors, set the scoring record on all of them, won a bajillion times, and hit shots no one had even thought about before. When they came to you and said, hey, you, Johnson Wagner, 3-time winner on the PGA Tour, decent tour pro, let's go recreate all the most majestic, iconic shots of Tiger's 2000 season. Your first reaction was, what?
I was thrilled to go do it, and we had a nice meeting of how we could logistically do 4 nights in a row and get the right shots in there. I really wanted to start at Kapalua on Monday night and do some shots from Maui that year, and I wanted to end at St. Andrews when he completed the career Grand Slam, but budgetary restrictions didn't allow that to happen. But man, getting to hit the shot at Glen Abbey, which I've played the Canadian Open at Glen Abbey so many times after that Tiger 2000, I don't think I've ever walked that fairway on 18 and not looked in that bunker and thought, how on earth did he hit that shot to the back right flag?
For those that don't know,
little...
so real quick, for those that don't know, that just may be listening for the first time and have a inkling of what we're talking about, it was the 2000 Canadian Open. He was playing with Grant Waite, and he had a 1-stroke or 2-stroke lead on 18, and Grant put it on the green in 2 on a par 5, and Tiger had found the right side bunker on the fairway, and he was over 200 yards out, hit a 6-iron over water out of the bunker and landed it onto the green. To me, everybody has their different Tiger. To me, that's the best shot I've ever seen anybody hit in my life. So anyway, that's the context of what we're talking about.
And so I get out there, and it's a little cool, and I mean, I'm in the spot in the bunker. It's a little into the wind, and I hit 3-iron, and I hit it as hard as I possibly could, kind of had to slice it around the trees, and I barely covered the water on the left side of the green. Yeah. Tiger hit 6-iron 25 years ago before, this is pre-Pro V1 ball
Correct.
Technology,
yeah.
the old tour baladas and professionals, they didn't go very far, and so for him to hit 6-iron on the line, I mean, he had to push that shot a little bit, but it was a blast. We got to, my field producer Andrew Bradley and I, we got to play. We played at Firestone and at Valhalla the next 2 days. Played at Cypress when we were out there for Pebble. It was an incredible trip, an absolute honor. It was going so well when we were doing it. We kind of had this idea: what if Tiger shows up the last day at Valhalla and just wants to come be a part of it? And we got a little ahead, out of our skis on that one, but it would have been incredible. And I haven't seen him since we did it, so I don't even know if he watched him. But I'll probably see him at the Hero in the Bahamas. I hope he says something. Last year at the Hero, he told me I needed to start eating salads. So this year, maybe I can tell him to stop having surgeries.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll eat more salads. You have less surgery. Everybody wins. So of the shots that you hit, what were just? I remember the one from the Canadian Open. The other 3 shots were what?
We hit 2 shots at Pebble. One from the AT&T on 15. He holed out on Sunday.
Yeah.
This little chippy wedge shot to a back right flag.
6 down with 6 to play against Matt Gogol and came back and won without forcing a playoff, by the way.
Right. And then the other shot we hit that night at Pebble was I didn't want to do it. It was the shot he hit out of the right rough. From the U.S. Open on 6, the par 5 that he hit onto the green. I think it was Friday. That fairway's been moved over to the cliff's edge, so there's no rough over there. So we hit that one from the fairway. I kind of skanked it. There was groups waiting on us, and it didn't go very well. But then Glen Abbey, we hit the shot in the dark at Firestone when he was in the right first cut, and it was pitch black, and he had a huge lead, so that's where let's just get this in.
Got it there. Yeah.
It was crazy, and then we did 3 from Valhalla. The one on 18 to force the playoff, then the one on 16 where he walked it and pointed after it, which I actually made that first. Only one take. These are not like recorded stuff; they're live. And I hit the putt and I started walking it in. It went in. That was the highlight of the trip. And then I don't even know why we did it, but went back to the bunker shot he hit on 18 in the playoff at Valhalla. So. It was a great 4 days. Lots of travel, lots of alone time with Andrew Bradley, my field producer. But we the camera guys, John Faco, man, we had a blast.
And I would imagine the Glen Abbey shot was the hardest one.
Without a doubt, the Glen Abbey shot was ridiculous.
Yeah, I get pushback from people when they play the chip from the 16th at Augusta in 2005. Like, the greatest shot in the history of golf. I'm like, bro, according to Tiger, that's not even the greatest shot in Tiger Woods' career. Like, I understand the moment, all that. I've chipped in from off a green. What I've never done is taken a 6-iron from a bunker, hit it over 200 yards over water to within 10 feet of the flag. Like, that shot is exponentially harder in every way, shape, or form than the chip in at 16 at Augusta in 2005.
I want so badly though for the Masters to let me do some recreations, and I think if they'd give me Monday, Tuesday night, I'd go out and do historic shots. Obviously, starting with 2005 Tiger chipping in. Wednesday they shut the course down to play, and then maybe Thursday or Friday get out there and hit some shots. I'm working on it. Last year I didn't have any hope. This year I think I've got a 0.5% chance to get that done.
So it's Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance. You're telling me there's a chance, and that's all I need. Well, listen, Johnson, this has been great catching up with you. I appreciate you taking some time out with us this morning. Obviously, I followed you when you played. I love what you're doing with the Golf Channel. Keep it going, man, and hopefully we'll catch up again real soon.
Thanks, Trey. You're the best, man. I'll come on anytime you need me.
You got it, brother. So thanks once again to Johnson Wagner for being our guest this week. And again, maybe we'll get Brian Rolap on and we'll pitch all these ideas to him and see what he has to say. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. Make sure you tell your friends and your neighbors, and most importantly, hit that like button and subscribe button, especially on YouTube. That'll get the show out as fast as possible to as many people as possible. So once again, thanks to Johnson Wagner, and we'll see you next time on Straight Facts Home.